Return, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. Shalom, this is Safania Pappas of B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our executive director. And I say shalom because we're going to Israel again for our part 3 in our interview with Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, as they'd say in Hebrew.
Yes, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, the senior writer for Israel 365 News, and I would say world-class writer, because I've read 2 of his 3 books, works of fiction, and they are awesome. We're talking about The Master of Return and the 11th Light. That is his new novel. It's available. You could get it on Amazon, but it's kind of fun to go to root-source.com and go to their shop, and you can get all 3 of his books. And you can bless Israel at the same time. So this is a Root Source publication. I'm not sure where it is in the interview we get into the reason why Root Source published. Well, in addition to the fact that Gideon Ariel is really good at promoting anything Israeli, and especially good teaching and good writing that's coming out of Israel. Well, that's why he through Root Sources published The Master of Return and the 11th Light. But also, Eliyahu's book paints the settlers of Judea and Samaria, and in fact paints the Jewish people and the state of Israel in a positive light. Now, why would it be otherwise? Because he is Jewish, he is Israeli, and he is one of those settlers. The novel is autobiographical and it is fictionalized, but it covers the time that he and his wife were living in Judea, in near Gush Etzion. Now they live in the Golan Heights in the town of Katzrin. So he knows his subject. He has lived it. And the sad thing is, what he has written, even though he's being even-handed here and showing some of the downside and the negative things of life in a settlement and of Israel, the state of Israel, the government, he's pretty candid about some things, but still what he has written is against the narrative, the prevailing global narrative. And as we get into later in the interview, the Israeli secular left narrative that Israel is the oppressor, the Arabs, the Palestinians are the oppressed, and the only way to fix it is with a 2-state solution. Well, Eliyahu's got some pretty significant viewpoints on that, as in, and you'll hear later on in the last part of our interview how he explains that, they were, well, actually, it's this part of the interview as I look at it, the hope for Jewish-Arab cooperation. We talk about that in this segment, which is the opposite of the 2-state solution. And I think you might be surprised what Eliyahu says about his hopes for Jewish and Arab relations. I was encouraged to hear what he says. I'm also encouraged to hear what he says about the Temple Mount and the status quo and how that status quo should change to come in line with what the God of the Bible and the God of Israel would like to see. I think the world would be surprised. And that, Safania, is why I really want to see that Eliyahu's book and the message and who he is and what he lives out, why that becomes a prevailing narrative. It's hope for the whole world. With that as introduction, let's continue on to Katzrin, Israel, and talk with Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz.
I love watching the video of John Kerry saying there's no way you can have peace between any Arab country and Israel unless it includes the Palestinians. Sorry, we did it. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't make sense, but because they're not taking everything into account.
Yeah.
They're saying 1 + 1 is 2, and we're saying 1 + 1, God willing, is 2. Okay. and that's the X factor that they don't know to put in. And we're living it. So when I talk about Geula, there's that process, and it's happening. And you really need the eyes to see it.
Yes, you really do.
And for a lot of Jews, that means one thing. For Christians, it might mean something else. Unfortunately, that's, like I said, unfortunately, so many Jews, that you would think, you're an Orthodox Jew. You don't eat, you keep kosher, you keep Shabbos, you're making all these sacrifices, make another little sacrifice, move to Israel. No. Why not? And for Christians, it means something else. They have to, and some Christians, thank God their eyes are open. And if they just read the Bible, especially if they learn a little bit of Hebrew, if they look at Israel, and if they see Israel as a real place, if they see like Jesus walked in the temple, you go to the Western Wall. Where did Jesus walk? On that plaza right up above it.
Exactly.
He was in and out of there all the time. He was really walking around places. He was doing things. He probably, looked a lot like me when I had the long payas and when I was a bit crazy. He looked like that. He was jumping into ice cold water like I used to do. And it's real water, and it's a real place, and it's and when you realize that it's a real place, it just changes the rules. It really changes the rules. And I think that's what we're going through.
Exactly. Well, and I can speak personally to that. My second trip to Israel, when I'm standing on Elon Moreh and realize Abraham and Sarah were here. Lot was with them right there. And I'm looking out, there's Shem, Nablus today. And then there's the Mount of Blessing, the Mount of Cursing. It's right there. And I'm feeling, this is centuries of God's story, how he's working to redeem the whole earth. And he started with this family, this man, Abram, and his wife, Sarai. And look what has happened since.
It's so funny you say that. The exact same thing happened to me. I was 17 years old the first time I came to Israel. And we were on a trip to En-Gedi, which is right by the Dead Sea. And we had a non-religious tour guide. And we're standing on this plateau overlooking like the main part of the spring. And she's going off, all the details. This is where we are, the elevation, or actually the depression. It's a deep hole in the face of the earth. And she's going through it all. And then she says, and this is where King David stood. And I'm like, wait a second, what are you talking about? She's like, King David. I'm like, are you talking about Psalms and, Goliath and David? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean he stood here? She said, well, it says in the Bible that he was camped out overlooking King Saul. And if you look around, this is the only plateau that you can see the spring from. And it hit me that this small plateau, one time King David was shuffling around on the very same rocks. And there I was. And that kind of blew my mind. And then when the first time I went to the Western Wall and I'm looking at the rocks, I mean, since I was a little kid, if I sat down, I'm sure I could unconsciously draw every single rock there. My people have been dreaming about that wall for 2,000 years. Actually, we've been dreaming about on top. I had an even more intense experience when I went up to the Temple Mount, where I could literally see the holiness glowing. And but the fact that, we're talking King Solomon. I remember I was driving with the guy past the Dead Sea, and there are sinkholes on the Dead Sea is dropping because of the Dead Sea works. And there's sinkholes that are forming, and it's filling up with brackish water. And it's filling up with fish. And there's actually a nature reserve on the shore of the Dead Sea I think you can't go in there. You need special permission. And it really looks like the Garden of Eden. It's so beautiful. And I'm like, that's the prophecy. And I was talking to this wonderful, lovely Christian man, and we're driving past it. And I talked about that. And he's like, no, you don't understand. When the Bible and the prophets talk about fish in the Dead Sea, they're talking about, Christians and going out and fishing, and the church fishing for souls. And I'm like, you're looking right at it. It's right. We're driving past it.
Yeah.
You're driving right past the prophecy unfolding in front of your eyes. Can't you see it? When you walk into Jerusalem, you're walking on prophecy. You're in the you're riding a bus. You see old people sitting there. You see kids playing in the streets. We're living the prophecy. Don't tell me it's an allegory. It's real, exactly as written. Exactly. And we're living it.
And at this point, I want to say about your work for Israel 365, that's what you write about.
On good days.
No, I remember one article you wrote a few years ago about just that, life coming back to the Dead Sea. Ezekiel wrote about that in the last 3 chapters of the vision he had.
So, yeah, there was recently another story. The eastern wall, the eastern retaining wall of the Temple Mount is, there's a hill that it goes down. There's a hill right next to it. And then there's a major road that goes around the old city. And someone sent me a photo that the thorn bushes that grow in between the stones form the Hebrew letters Yud, He, Vav.
Oh,
The first 3 letters of the Tetragrammaton, God's name, and it was starting to form the last He.
Huh.
And I looked at it and I'm like, no, that can't be. It's like, it's a major road. So I had someone, I live in the Golan, so I couldn't run down and check it out. So I had someone go check out, and he's like, I live here. It isn't. Okay. And I'm like, just do me a favor, go check it out. I mean, I can't, if someone did Photoshop, okay, it's Photoshop. And I'll write that. I'll say it didn't happen. But if it happened, I want to know about it. And he went and he called me up and he's like, oh my goodness. And I had at least 2 other journalists contact me and say, no. And I'm like, go check it out. And then they got back to me, oh my goodness. Right on a major road, thousands of people driving past, or hundreds every hour. One of the major roads that in the old city, going past in the old city in Jerusalem, the name of God is being formed on a wall by bushes, and no one saw. No one saw.
That's just one of many signs and the things that are happening if you've got eyes to see and ears to hear.
Yeah.
Well, let me go back to Master Return. This is what you write about. You're writing about the Geulah, and you're writing about this crazy group of Jews in Israel who actually believe the promises and believe that there are some on the Christian side who might be partners in this. But you also write a very, very human story about the opposition you face.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, you mean the Arabs, or?
Well, not just the Arabs.
Because I don't see them as opposition.
I understand. And, I appreciate what you write in the book of how you are, and even in your foreword or your introduction.
Okay.
You do not hate the Arabs. You don't hate the Palestinians.
God forbid. God forbid. Absolutely not.
Let me just go a little side note here. What is your hope? If all things could be set in order, what is your hope for relationship of Jewish people and Arab people in the Holy Land of Israel?
There's no reason we can't be together. There's you have to, any person who lives in the land of Israel, Jew or Gentile, has to keep the Noahide laws. And one of the Noahide laws is don't murder. And if they, and I heard was it Rav Shmuel Eliyahu, or it was a Sephardi rabbi, a big Sephardi rabbi, And they misunderstood. They twisted what he said, which was such a shame. But he was saying, Israel is, you never read in the Bible about Israel being just for the Jews. There's a thing about the ownership of the land, and there is a delicate balance. But I think the big problem with, for example, with the Temple Mount is not that the Arabs are up there. The big problem is that only the Arabs can pray there, because it really has to be. It's almost as if, well, I mean, other than the fact that it's the nature of Islam, it has to be a house of prayer for all nations.
Yeah.
So we're not saying only us. We're saying open up the doors. Open up the doors. It's funny. Rav Pesach Leliki, he said, you think that when the third temple comes, that you're gonna, go to Jerusalem and you're gonna go by your go to your sheep or your bull and go up to the Temple Mount and go to the Kohen and you're done. He's like, no. He's like, you're going to go to Jerusalem with your goat, and then you're going to see your buddy Al McCarn.
Yeah.
And Al's going to be, Eliyahu, I'm so glad I bumped into you. I want to bring a Thanksgiving offering. Could you take it up to the Kohen for me? I'll be like, Al, of course I will. So I have my goat, and now I have your goat. And then I start walking up, and someone's like, Al, is that guy a Jew? And you'll be like, yeah. And they'll be like, your name is Eliyahu. Here, take this for me too. And I'll be like going up to the Temple Mount with like 100 sacrifices that I'm taking up for all of the nations that are so happy to be serving Hashem. And it's not everyone being Jewish. It's everyone being happy in the house of God.
Yeah.
And Judaism never proselytized. We never wanted to convert. And that's not what the temple is about. The temple is about us serving the world, us connecting the world to God. And if that's our job, there's going to be a lot of people crowding around every single Jew, because there's not so many of us.
No, that's exactly what, I mean, you have just spoken what Zechariah said, that there'll be 10 from the nations who come take hold of the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you. We've heard the Lord is with you. That is such a beautiful picture you've just painted for us.
Yeah. I'm not claiming to be the first to say it. Okay.
No, but it is a house of prayer for all nations. That's what Isaiah said. And by the way, that's what Jesus said. So,
I'm sure. I mean, well, I'm sure he also picked it up from Zechariah.
Yes, actually. Yes. Yeah, he was quoting the prophets.
Yeah, because I mean, isn't that the real image of a house of God?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, and that's, I think, I mean, that doesn't surprise me that that's really, I mean, if you ask a Christian, that's what he wants. It's kind of like, how can I was never really thrilled with synagogues. It's just like, okay, we're all saying the same thing. I'd rather go someplace and meet some really sweet people, like, okay, they're not all the same. And we can all pray together, why not? Why not? We're not all the same. We're not all the same religion, and it doesn't have to be all the time. But come the festival, the Feast of the Booths, come Sukkot, the Feast of the Tabernacles. That's when all the nations came up, and the last day of Sukkot, what we call Shmini Atzeret, which has come to be Simchat Torah, when we dance with the Torah. That's actually when only the Jews, and after the whole world comes up, we have our own special day with God. But you first have those 6 days where we bring up a total of 70 bulls offerings total for all of Sukkot, because that's the 70 nations. It's really where everyone comes to celebrate God. And I mean, why would I want any other image of peace between the Arabs and the Jews, anything other than that? That's a pretty beautiful image. I mean, God willing.
It is.
And something that's also the antithesis of the two-state solution. I don't want a line drawn with them over there and us over there. We were getting close to it. We were getting really close to it before the Oslo Accords. We would go into the Arab villages to get our cars fixed, because they made the best hummus and pizza. And God willing, that's where we're headed now. God willing.
Yes, I would agree. I'll pray with you for that. Now, you mentioned other opposition. In fact, when you're writing about your first meeting Thule and Rivka, well, Sephi and Hannah in the book, there are two detractors. We don't call them enemies. We don't hate them, but they are people who are opposing what you're doing, reaching out to Christians and, writing about biblical prophecy and things. The secular Israeli left.
Yes, which is insane.
Yes. Why is that? I mean, why is it insane? Why are they opposing?
Well, I'll tell you. And so Hayovel gets it the worst. Hayovel, for those who don't know, they're really devout evangelical Christians. They are on Har Bracha, and they bring over Christian volunteers to volunteer in the vineyards of Har Bracha, the Mount of Blessing. And Haaretz is, they're so left-wing that they're anti-Israel.
Here's Solomon Lopez singing Create in Me. You can hear more of Solomon's music at Hebraism.org.
Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Let me hear of your joy and gladness. Please don't go. Wash me, oh yeah, whiter than the snow. Let my tongue sing aloud of your righteousness, O Elohim, of my deliverance, of my deliverance. Let me hear of your joy and gladness. Please don't go. Wash me, oh yeah, whiter than the snow. Open my lips so my mouth may declare your praise all of my days. Create in me a clean heart, lift over Ali, oh, create in me a clean heart, create in me. Oh
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the mid-Rosh portion of Reunion Roadmap. This is David Jones, and with me today is Barry Phillips. Shalom, brother.
And shalom, David.
I was reading recently in Deuteronomy 27:1 and come across this phrase in here where it says, Moses, with the elders of Israel, commanded the people, saying, keep all the commandments that I command you this day. And I just kind of stopped there for a minute, because how many of us have been told, there's absolutely no way you can keep all those commandments. And there's no way that you can do that. And it's just not possible. And there's so many things that draw to mind on that. Like, well, why would Yahweh tell us to do something that's incapable so he could punish us because we don't do it, because we're not capable of doing it? I mean, that doesn't relate his heart. That doesn't show what he's doing. And I was kind of looking at it, and it breaks down as this. It says, Shamar et kol ha-mitzvah. So to shamar is to keep, to guard, to protect. And it's, aleph taf, kol ha-mitzvah. So kol, the word used there, is can be translated, depending on context, can be translated as all or every or each. But then it says mitzvah, which mitzvah is the singular of mitzvot, which is commandments. So the way this is reading literally is to keep and guard and protect et kol mitzvah, the mitzvah, one command. And so what Yahweh seems to be doing is taking all of the things that he's put in general and specific and done all this and combined it and grouped it together as, this is what I said. This is the one thing that I've said, but yet it breaks down to the people within that. So how do we keep his commandments? Especially when scripture says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Yeshua said that, and we find that throughout the Tanakh. And, we love him, we keep his commandments. So the short thing that I'm thinking of that is, how do we do that? Well, kol is all, each and every. So I'm thinking, if we do it one at a time, each. So in other words, as we are living our life, learning the word, following his ways, doing these things, how do we keep his commandments? We can only keep them really and truly one at a time, while we're focusing on what we're doing right in front of us. We walk in his ways, and we do that right in front of us. And then we follow his heart, and then we come to the next thing. And it's kind of like I've said before you today, life and death, blessing and cursing. Choose. As we get choices, we're produced with mitzvot and opportunities. So there's a few different things that we can go and relate in there. It's kind of like just a couple minutes, but it's a pretty big bite. So what do you think, Barry? Where do you think we should go with this?
Well, first thing that came to mind, David, is something someone told me early on, and that is, I just don't believe you have to do all that stuff. And when I heard that, as you are just beginning this journey through the Torah, you have to admit, it all seems a bit overwhelming, especially when you get into Leviticus and you've never really studied Leviticus before, and you think, I'm not sure what all of this has to do pertaining to me. And I still get asked the question, so why are we studying this? Why does this matter to us? It is in the keeping of the commands as we learn to do so, as you said, one at a time, that we not only find the value of those commands, but we also find the revelation of the commands, which should lead us to a increased clarity of the picture of Yeshua. Most everybody has seen the classic European model depicting Messiah that is hung in many of the churches that we came out of, where he is looking slightly up, fair skin, blue eyes, light brown hair. And now we know that's probably not what Yeshua looked like. So looking and wondering, okay, Messiah, who are you really? You're not necessarily the previously presented model. Who are you? That picture, every time we look into his commands and follow them to the best of our understanding and ability, becomes more and more clear. So why do we even bother to try to do this? To find Messiah, to be honorable and well-pleasing to him, yes, but to see him. So when it says here, David, to guard all the commands, it's easily understood, I think. There are commands that are very specific to one gender or the other, male or female. There are commands that are specifically for the king, some for the prophets, some for the Levites and the priest. There are certain commands that might only be enabled or be able to observe once you're in the land. It says specifically several times, when you come into the land, this is what you are to do. For example, in this Torah portion, it says, chapter 26, the previous chapter, when you come into the land and you present your first fruits and you come before the priest in that day, that means you're going to the temple. When you do that, this is what you are to do and how you are to do it. We don't have a temple. We don't have a high priest. We're not in the land. So we might say, well, chapter 26 has nothing to do with us. Let's just skip it. No, there's revelation in there. There's some things that we can apply. So when it says each or every or all or as they would apply to you, you are to keep them. Still, David, I think it's important to understand you learn by doing. It's not necessarily that we are allowed to walk by trial and error, but that is a part of it. When people talk about the virtue of grace that is offered, it's not to cover our sins so that, we can do what we want and sin as we would, but grace will just have to cover it all up because he knows that we can't help ourselves. That's not good doctrine. What a good doctrine of grace is, I know you are learning my commands. I know you're not going to get them perfectly, but I give to you grace, an understanding, a divine empowerment to practice this until you get it better or even get it completely right. So my question to you is, do you think that in the last days when we come into the kingdom that we will finally learn exactly how to do each and all of these commands and the aspect of his grace will be lessened to keep them? Or will we need it even more because the perfection of the command may have come?
That's kind of a little twist on that. You're kind of breaking up a little bit when you pose the question, but I think I got it. When we're in this millennial reign with Yeshua and he returns and establishes his kingdom, sets his throne, and we're there with him, and it's a glorious thing. He will, by no doubt, teach us his ways, teach us his Torah, as Scripture says that the Torah will go forth, and we will be taught. He will teach us his ways, and we will be obedient and learn to welcome them. And example, the Scripture says all nations will come to Jerusalem for Sukkot. In the time that will be, all nations will go, all will listen, all will be obedient, and what we've learned, though, is that because we have his word and we will know what it says and we will be obedient, does not lessen or diminish in any aspect the need for his grace. And it doesn't mean he will not give it. He says that God gives grace to the humble. And if we are humbling ourselves and walking in his ways, his promise to extend his grace to us is still there.
Okay.
When we're there with him, and I'm thinking as well that the only way we can really, truly, and honestly keep Torah is as a people of Yahweh, is as a whole. I'm again thinking forward into this time that yet will be, because there's no way that any one of us can keep all of them. The only way to keep all and to guard all his commands is as a whole, as a grouping of people. When all of us individually are doing our pieces and parts that we're supposed to be doing, when we come together, we're all keeping as a whole.
So it takes a nation
I
of
think
the
so.
variety of people to keep the commands.
Yes. Like his bride, a nation of people set apart to Yahweh. And I think when he gave us his Torah, he gave it to us as individuals to learn and accept and walk in his ways and show his heart to us. But he gave it to us as a nation, as a whole, to do so. Like you were referencing in Deuteronomy 26, when you bring the offering to the priest in the temple, when you go into the land and you go through the declaration or the prayer, if you will, that accompanies that. It's not a bless me kind of thing. It's a remembering the land, blessing the people, blessing the nation, blessing. So it's me as an individual getting blessing because Yahweh is blessing us as a people as a whole. But one is not mutually exclusive.
No. And so in the keeping of the command as a nation, then the blessing of keeping the command comes upon the nation, not just the individual. In other words, we have been taught and trained, I will do what I'm supposed to do so I can be blessed. But rather here it is an understanding, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do so we can all be blessed. And that's what the previous chapter 26:15, after they obey individually, the prayer is, now bless Israel as a whole.
Yeah, and I'm reminded in the regards of keeping the Torah and doing these things as a blessing and doing all this. I'm reminded of James. I think it's 1:25, where he says a person looks into the perfect Torah that gives freedom.
I think you're right.
And continue in that, not forgetting it, but doing what it requires. And it says that you'll be blessed in all you do, because you as an individual will get blessing, but you as a people, as a community, as will have that blessing as well. And if we're doing, the reason why they call commands mitzvot, mitzvot are commands, but good deeds is how it translates as well. So if we're doing what Yahweh has commanded us to do, we will be doing good to one another. So it's not a selfish bless me kind of thing. It's I'm keeping the word of Yahweh. I will receive blessing because of obedience, but at the same time, who knows in what part my life can play in a blessing overflowing to those around me.
So another response to the original caution that I received, I just don't believe you have to do all of that stuff. I learned to ask this responding question. So which one of the commands is it that you want to break? And that will cause, do you want to disregard your parents? Do you want to commit adultery? You want to kill? You want to steal? Do you want to deny the Messiah? What is it that you want to break? Well, basically, they said, I just don't want to do all those sacrifice stuff. Well, that's not possible at the moment. So the goal here is to guard all the commands and not pick and choose. And I say, well, I just don't want to because I don't want to. But rather we learn to love to do the commands. And in the doing of them, we will find Messiah. And as we've been talking about, we release the favor and the blessing of Yah on everybody collectively. And collectively, we're out of time.
Well, that's the way it hits us, I guess. So here we are, guys. We'd love to hear your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and feedback. So you can do that by sending us an email at reunionroadmap@b'nai-yosef.com. Until next time, shalom.
Shalom.
From Will Spires, here is Guide Our Feet. This is one of many of Will's songs that you can hear on his YouTube channel. Well, our musical guests on this podcast have been Solomon Lopez and Will Spires. It's always good to hear from both of those brothers. It is also good to hear from our elders, Barry Phillips and David Jones. They've got some pretty awesome insights into the scriptures. And in this case, the title of their midrash is called Each, Every, or All. And they're talking about the commandments of the Lord, the mitzvot. Stefania, how do we go about observing, keeping all the commandments? And is it unreasonable to expect anyone to be able to do that?
Well, first of all, we have to look at the fact that do all those commandments apply to each one of us? And some of them apply to women, some apply to men, some apply to Levites, some apply to if you have a temple. And so how many of those actually do apply to you would be the question. And many times people will get into this thing that we need to keep all the commandments, and they're literally thinking all of them when they're forgetting that a lot of these commandments apply into certain situations and certain people.
That's true. And that's true of any people under any government anywhere in the world at any given time. Because right now, where I sit and where you sit, laws that have to do with regulating, say, the meat packing industry, we're not involved in that industry. Now, we hope that those who are involved and to whom those laws do apply are abiding by both the letter and the spirit so that the meat we consume is healthy. So in that case, being aware of the general body of legislation and policies and regulations would be a good idea. But as for knowing them backwards and forwards and being able to and required to adhere to them to the letter, no, for the meatpacking industry, that doesn't apply directly to us, which is the same thing we could say for the Levitical priesthood.
Yes.
One day, may it be soon and in our day, when the temple is rebuilt and the worship system there is reestablished, well, then we get to see the priests with the Levites assisting, bringing thanksgiving offerings and praise offerings and the daily burnt offerings. I have looked upon it as it's good to be aware of what these are. And as Barry and David say, we can see the Messiah in them as we are studying and doing the commandments, those that we are able to do. So it's good to be aware and study, and then actually to see it in operation. I believe that's going to open up a whole new level of understanding and revelation of our relationship with our Creator and Redeemer once we can actually see it with our eyes. Well, again, may that be soon and in our day, but until then, here we are in the exile, working for the kingdom, and I would hope bringing the kingdom in our own spheres every day.
Yes.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Reunion Roadmap. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this program, go visit our website, BneiYosefNA.com, BneiYosefNA.com. Check out our resources and our links. And we do have a donate button. So if you are moved and blessed by what you hear and would like to partner with us, we would be greatly honored if you would. And we are still greatly honored to be bringing this program to you regularly. So join us again next week for another edition of Reunion Roadmap. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.